She was just a tired waitress cleaning tables on a cold Christmas night when a billionaire's wallet slipped from his hands. Inside, she noticed something that didn't belong among credit cards and cash, a torn, old Christmas card, folded so many times it looked like it had survived a lifetime. She wasn't trying to read it, but one name stopped her heart. It was her mother's name. In that instant, her entire childhood, her unanswered questions, and her mother's silent pain suddenly made sense. The man everyone admired for his wealth was hiding a secret that had destroyed her family, and what she would do next would change both of their lives forever. The night was already heavy with quiet sorrow when the wallet fell open, spilling secrets that were never meant to be seen. It was the kind of moment that stops time, when the world narrows to a single breath and a single truth, and a stranger's life suddenly collides with your own. For the young waitress standing there under dim restaurant lights, the torn Christmas card hidden inside a billionaire's wall, it would change everything she thought she knew about pain, love, and forgiveness. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of small moments to change lives, take a second right now to like this video, comment your thoughts, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps stories like this reach hearts that need them most. She had been on her feet for almost 10 hours that evening, moving between tables with practiced efficiency, carrying plates that smelled of warmth and comfort while her own life felt cold and unfinished. The restaurant was decorated for Christmas, but the cheer felt borrowed, hanging like borrowed joy that would be taken down soon. She noticed him the moment he walked in, not because he was famous or wealthy, but because loneliness followed him like a shadow. His coat was expensive, his watch unmistakable, but his eyes looked like they had been awake for years. Everyone knew who he was, the white billionaire whose name appeared in magazines, whose companies reshaped cities, whose face appeared on charity banners without ever smiling. He sat alone at a corner table, untouched by the laughter around him. She approached like she did with every guest, polite, professional, invisible. Yet something about him made her slow down. Maybe it was the way he stared at the Christmas tree near the window, as if it reminded him of something lost. Throughout the evening, he barely touched his food. His hands trembled slightly when he reached for his glass, and when he stood to leave, he seemed older than his years. That was when it happened. As he reached for his coat, his wallet slipped from his hand and landed on the floor, opening just enough to reveal what was inside. She bent down instinctively to pick it up, her fingers brushing against worn leather and folded memories. That was when she saw the card, torn, creased, and yellowed with age. It was a Christmas card, clearly kept for many years, split down the middle as if it had once been ripped apart in anger or desperation. She had no intention of reading it, but the name written in uneven handwriting caught her eye like a spark in the dark. The name was her mother's. Her heart pounded so loudly she felt dizzy. For a moment, she wondered if exhaustion was playing tricks on her. But the name was unmistakable, the same name she had whispered at gravesides, the same name she carried like a wound. Her mother had died years ago, leaving behind more questions than answers, leaving her daughter to grow up faster than she should have. And now, impossibly, that name was inside the wallet of a man worth billions. She handed the wallet back with shaking hands, her face carefully blank, her training stronger than her shock. But inside her, a storm had started. Memories rushed back of a small apartment, of Christmas mornings that grew colder each year, of a mother who smiled through exhaustion and hid letters she never sent. There had been stories her mother refused to finish, fragments of a past that always ended in silence. The rest of the shift passed in a blur. She kept replaying the image of the card in her mind, wondering how it could be there, wondering what it meant. When her shift finally ended, she sat alone in the empty restaurant, staring at the Christmas lights until they blurred into tears. She knew she could walk away, pretend she had seen nothing, but she also knew that some moments demand courage, even when it hurts. Over the next few days, she learned more than she wanted to know. She searched his name online, reading interviews where he spoke about success, but never about family. There were rumors, too, buried deep in forgotten articles, about a woman who had disappeared from his life decades ago, about a child he never acknowledged. The pieces fit together slowly, painfully. She remembered her mother's quiet strength, the way she worked multiple jobs, the way she avoided certain questions. She remembered Christmases without gifts, but filled with warmth, and later Christmases filled with silence. Her mother had once said that some people leave not because they stop loving, but because they are too broken to stay. At the time, she had not understood. The weight of the truth pressed down on her until she felt she could barely breathe. The billionaire was not just a stranger. He was a man tied to her existence, a man who had walked away from her mother before she was born, leaving behind a torn card and a lifetime of consequences. Anger rose in her chest, sharp and burning, but beneath it was something else, something softer and more dangerous. Understanding. Fate intervened again when he returned to the restaurant a week later, alone as always. Snow fell outside, turning the city into a quiet painting. She served him with the same calm professionalism, but inside she felt like a child standing at the edge of a cliff. She noticed how tired he looked, how time had carved regret into his face. She wondered if he ever thought about the woman whose name he carried in his wallet. That night, as he prepared to leave, she finally gathered the courage to act, not with anger, not with accusations, but with honesty. She did not confront him with words or demands. Instead, she slipped a small envelope onto the table after he left. Inside was a photocopy of an old photograph, one she had kept in her wallet for years, a picture of her mother on a snowy Christmas morning, holding a baby wrapped in a red blanket. Days passed without a response. She prepared herself for disappointment, for silence, for the possibility that he would choose denial over truth. But on Christmas Eve, a letter arrived at her small apartment. The envelope was thick, the handwriting unsteady. She knew before opening it that everything was about to change. The letter was not an excuse. It was not a defense. It was a confession written by a man who had spent decades running from himself. He wrote about fear, about ambition, about the moment he tore the card in half after realizing he was not strong enough to be a father. He wrote about regret that grew heavier with each passing year, about the child he imagined but never knew, about the card he could never throw away. Reading the letter, she cried not out of anger but out of release. For the first time, the story of her life felt complete. The absence that had shaped her suddenly had a face, a reason, and a sorrow attached to it. She realized that healing did not mean erasing the past, but understanding it. They met quietly after the holidays, away from cameras and headlines. There were no dramatic embraces, no instant forgiveness. Just two people sitting across from each other, bound by blood and time, trying to bridge a gap measured in decades. He listened as she spoke about her mother, about her struggles, about the strength it took to raise a child alone. He listened with tears he did not hide, Over time, something fragile but real began to grow. He did not try to buy her love or erase the years with money. Instead, he showed up, he listened, he learned, and she, in turn, allowed herself to feel something she had never expected. Peace. On Christmas morning the following year, they stood together in a modest living room, not a mansion, not a stage. On the table sat a small tree and a single card, whole and unbroken. The past was still there, but it no longer defined them. What mattered was the choice they made now, to be present, to be honest, to be human. If this story touched your heart even a little, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who believes in healing, and subscribe to the channel so more stories like this can find their way to people who need them. Before the ending, we have a special request for you. Please comment below and tell us what forgiveness means to you, or whether you believe some wounds can still lead to beautiful endings. The waitress never stopped being herself. She still believed in hard work, still valued kindness over wealth. But now, when she looked at the world, she saw it differently. She understood that people are often broken long before they break others, and that sometimes the smallest discoveries, a torn card in a wallet, can open the door to truths that set us free. And somewhere in the quiet space between regret and hope, a family found its way back together, proving that even after a lifetime of silence, love can still find a voice.